you doing, everybody? Welcome to a special episode. I got Vincent here, and we also have Gail, and we are covering a fun movie that I'm sure you're familiar with. It is Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Woo-hoo. Vinny's going to join us for 1 second, then he'll probably jump away. There he goes. First things first, though, Gail and I have a show we call Coming Up Millhouse, and we review episodes of The Simpsons. We have our Simpsons shirt and background playing today, so I will have a link in the notes below. Go check Coming Up Millhouse. It's pretty fun. So what we're going to do today on this Pee-wee video is we're going to use the same format that we do when we do Coming Up Millhouse. We're going to talk about our favorite lines, our favorite scene, and who we think is the winner or the loser of the story. Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right. Well, first thing I want to do, though, is talk about Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Of course, we know this is the story of Pee-wee and his bicycle that gets stolen, and he has to go on a cross-country trip to recover it. And Gail, I'm curious, how far back do you go with Pee-wee's Big Adventure? Do you have any memories of?
Oh yeah, I used to watch it. This used to be a TV show. I would watch it all the time on television. This particular movie ran in theaters in 1985, and I vividly remember going to see it in the theater. And my cousin Erin was such a huge fan of Pee-wee's Playhouse. She's younger than I am, but she had like the action figure playset, and she had a cherry in her bedroom when she was a kid, and a lot of the Pee-wee figures. So I go way back with Pee-wee's.
That's cool, because I totally remember Pee-wee's Playhouse. I was the age to watch it, but I didn't get to see this one in the theater. I caught it on VHS later, not much later. I was probably 12, but I was the perfect age for this because it just had that juvenile humor that worked then, but as an adult, it still works. It's still so much fun to watch.
Right.
And it's one of the movies that I can throw on very often. I know you and I have watched it several times. So, yeah, I love this movie. And let's just get into our favorite lines. Why don't you give me your favorite line?
Because I don't make monkeys, I train them. And I was pretty close to the beginning of the movie, and Pee-wee is having an interaction with his neighbor / rival Francis, and it's Francis's birthday, and Francis is a very well-off kid, and he really wants Pee-wee's bike, and they have this "I know you are, but what am I?" exchange.
Infinity.
And that was, the "I don't make monkeys, I train them" line.
Yeah, that's the kind of line you use as your 12-year-old self when you're having your arguments in the schoolyard. Yeah, perfect stuff.
What about you?
All right, so my first line goes to the scene where he is waking up in the morning and he is doing all his morning routines to get going in the day, and he makes breakfast, and he makes Mr. Breakfast, and the line is, "Good morning, Pee-wee." And then Pee-wee says, "Good morning, Mr. Breakfast. Can I have some Mr. T cereal?" "Okay." Pours a big bunch of Mr. T cereal on the pancakes and bacon. And then he says, "I pity the poor fool who don't eat my cereal." And I totally remember Mr. T cereal. That was a big 80s
little
thing.
T's, yep.
Put Mr. T in. That's awesome.
As big of a Mr. T fan as I was in that era, I really don't believe I ever had Mr. T cereal. And
I didn't have it often, I can say that, but I know I had it at least once or twice in life.
Fairly certain I saw it on the grocery store shelves, and that was not an option. So
yeah. I don't know what it tasted like. I think it was kind of like a Captain Crunch kind of deal. I think it was. That was so long ago I couldn't tell you. But
yeah.
If there's a little recess in my memory. I think it was more like Captain Crunch. It was just a Captain Crunch with a T, from what I remember. All right, what about another one?
It's like you're trying to unravel a giant cable knit sweater, and someone keeps knitting and knitting.
The big meeting. No one knows what it's supposed to mean. It's been 3 hours.
Yes. Don't know what's going on.
Pee-wee was, he was very adamant about making this happen.
He was 100% adamant about finding his missing / stolen bicycle. That was his favorite thing in life.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
All right, so when he goes on his journey out into the world to go find his bike, he's told by a psychic that it is in the basement of the Alamo. Of course, he finds out there is no basement in the Alamo. He runs further away and gets into more shenanigans and ends up on a pole and gets kicked off of the pole and gets knocked around and gets kind of scrambled a little bit. And these dudes are trying to wake him up. And one of them says, "Hey kid, what's your name?" And he says, "I can't remember." He's like, "Well, where are you from?" "I can't remember." "Well, can you remember anything?" And he says, "I remember the Alamo." And they're Texas, so all the Texas guys go, "Yeah!" And I am a history kind of fan. Going back as a kid, I was always kind of like obsessed with the Alamo story. And the fact that the Alamo is in this movie might have had something to do with it. I don't know. But I love that line. It's always been a great line.
It is. It's a great movie, and it has little historical things peppered throughout it. It's
Absolutely.
pretty fun.
Yep. What about line number 3?
Line number 3. You know those labels that say "do not remove under penalty of law"? Well, I lost my temper and I cut one off.
Oh, and Pee-wee was like, "Whoa!" It was like, I got a stone cold killer here.
Yes, absolutely.
Mickey.
So Mickey is in a getaway car, and Pee-wee hops in, and he's looking for a ride. He's hitchhiking with a giant thumb, and Mickey is an escaped prisoner, and he has his handcuffs on his wrists, and he's driving this getaway car. Which is a fancy convertible, by the way. Mm-hmm. And, Pee-wee wants to know, what were you in for? And that's what Mickey tells him.
That's the hardened criminal.
That's the story.
That he is now embroiled with is the guy that cut off the mattress tag. Mm-hmm. Bad news. Mm-hmm. He's a loner, a rebel.
A rebel. What about you?
Well, I got to do the scene toward the end where he ends up in the biker bar and he knocks over their bikes and they pull him in, and a couple of them say some lines and there's a little bit of exchange, but one of them says, "I say we kill him," and the other says, "I say we hang him," and the other says, "I say we stomp him, then we tattoo him, and then we hang him, and then we kill him." And then he says, "I say we let him go." And they're all like, "No." So, come on, that is a great... That,
Fun
of course...
fact, I hear that line frequently when we're not watching this movie.
And it's followed up by Cassandra Peterson
Yes.
as Biker Mama.
Yep. A.K.A. Elvira.
Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, in her cameo. Great stuff.
We also have to just give a quick little favorite line reference to the semi-truck scene.
Large Marge?
Yes. So are you ready? We're going to do it together.
Okay.
Tell them
Large Marge sent you.
So
I love it.
those were our lines for this movie.
Awesome.
What about your favorite scene?
There are so many scenes. It is so hard to pick. When we do Coming Up Millhouse, the same thing, but it's a 20-minute episode, whereas this is an hour and a half movie. But, I kind of went back and forth, but I decided I'm going to go with what I've seen referred to online as Pee-wee's Lament, and it's when the bike gets stolen. Pee-wee says, "I'm going to go look for it," and he starts walking through the mall looking for his bike and looking all downtrodden, and everybody in the world's got their bike and is showing it off. So he's walking all, like Charlie Brown, and there's a guy on a unicycle. Then there's a guy delivering pizzas, and then he sees it in the window of, the reflection of the window. And then he's sitting there, he's all depressed. There's kids with tricycles. There's a guy with an old-timey bike going by. A big tandem bike with like 5 people on it. And then a kid with a remote control bicycle cock toy going by. And he's just like, it's just rubbing salt in the wound the whole time.
100%.
And, you know, I got to give it to Paul Rubens, who plays Pee-wee, you know. His timing in this is great because his just subtle reactions to each and every one of them just sells it. And, you know, he's brilliant in the movie in a million different ways, but I think that scene kind of showcases a pretty good like comedic acting chops he's got while still having to be like depressed and sad. So good job on that. I'm going to go with that scene. It's really good.
Well, like you said, there were too many scenes to choose from, and of course you probably know what my all-time favorite scene, because I reference it frequently too, since we have it on a record, the song. So in the biker bar, Pee-wee gets up on the bar and he borrows some high-top 70s lift shoes, and he's doing his little Pee-wee shuffle dance on the bar, and I absolutely love that scene.
It is great, yeah. You know, it's kind of iconic, really, the whole this, and then the song, it just kind of marries perfectly, and of course he wins the gang over with that.
Yes. And then, so somehow they had the platform shoes in his size in the bar, and then also he wins the biker gang over, and they have an extra vest, or maybe they took it from somebody that they didn't like so much from the biker bar. They give him a biker vest and a motorcycle to go on his merry way. Right. So he did a great job in that dance scene, but it's one of my favorite moments in this movie. Did you have a second scene? Because we can definitely go for a second scene.
We can go for it. Well, I'm going to go with the drive-in at the end, because at the end of the movie, they're at the drive-in, and everyone he's touched, you know, everyone in his life in this story is at this drive-in watching his movie about his life. Of course, it doesn't look anything like his life, because we got James Brolin and Morgan Fairchild playing him and Dottie, which is just brilliant. But I just love how he's going down the drive-in, he runs into everybody, and everyone has a little quirk and gives him a snack, and you know, he gives Mickey a file, he gives, you know, Salome French fries, you know. Right. You know, so, you know, I just love it's a great way to tie it up.
It really is.
Of course, have it set the drive-in, you know me. So.
I know. And the biker gang is dressed in their Sunday's finest, and they all have top hats on, and they're, you know, they're dressed for the night out on the town, and it was pretty great. So.
And I love how the hobos have boxes they're sitting on in a fire pit, like they're out hoboing, but they're at the drive-in with boxes and a fire pit. It's brilliant.
Absolutely.
What about you?
So I'm going with the very first opening scene. It's a dream sequence where Pee-wee is in the Tour de France and he is riding his bike, and it is 100% brilliant. It's such a Tim Burton moment. I think that I've been a fan of Tim Burton probably, you know, since 1985 from this movie, because Beetlejuice came out after this, and I just love it. And Danny Elfman music and everything too. It just is great. So Pee-wee is having a dream, and he is winning the Tour de France, and all of the other cyclists are so ticked off at Pee-wee riding past them. They're all wearing their fancy helmets that are, you know, created to help with the speed, and they are definitely well trained. And here comes Pee-wee on his bike with his handles up here and little bells, and he's got his lion head on the front, and you know, it's tricked out. It's not made for speed at all, and he is winning. And that's just the opening scene, and it tells you how much this guy loves his bike and what the movie is about, just like that.
Yeah, so. It's a great way to open it. I have memories of watching this with my dad on VHS, and him belly laughing at that part. He was just like, ah!
That's great.
He thought it was so funny, you know. I have vivid memories of that.
That's fantastic.
So definitely a great opening. All right, so the other thing we do on our Coming Up Millhouse channel is we pick winners and losers for the episode of Millhouse, but we're going to pick winners and losers for Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So why don't you give me your loser?
My loser, I'm going with the butler at Francis's house, who is also Professor Teru Tanaka, who was really a famous wrestler in WWF in the 60s. And so his name in the credits is his wrestling handle of Professor Teru Tanaka. And I just think it's fantastic because Pee-wee goes to confront Francis, who he believes stole his bike. I'm not going to give any spoilers away. If you haven't watched this movie, just watch it and find out what really happens. But Pee-wee's knocking on the door. Butler opens the door, says Francis is taking a bath. Pee-wee sneaks in the house eventually and then goes, and there's like a miniature pool, but it's a giant 18-person bathtub, whichever way you want to look at it, in this house. And Francis is in his swimsuit taking his bath, and he's sinking ships and all of that fun stuff. And the butler goes to open the door. Francis is going out, so comic gag. He goes flying into the pool and gets sopping wet. So that's why I picked him as my loser for this movie.
Perfect slapstick gag for that. That was fun.
Plus, it was a good reason to mention him. So.
Yep.
What about you?
All right, my loser is Andy. So of course, Pee-wee meets Simone, and they're having a moment up on the big T-Rex. And Andy's her boyfriend doesn't like that she's hanging out with another guy. Chases Pee-wee all over the place. But
with a dinosaur bone.
Yeah. Gets dinosaur bone, doesn't get Pee-wee. Pee-wee escapes in the train. Then later, Pee-wee gets on a bull in a rodeo, and Andy jumps in there to go try to get Pee-wee, but lo and behold, he's wearing a big red shirt, and he's got a big red belly, and the bull's like, I want some of that. Takes off after Andy. Andy lost Simone, got a bull chasing him, could not get Pee-wee. He did not win this film at all, so
Nope.
That is my guy. But why don't we end things on winner? What is your winner? Yeah.
I'm going with Madame Ruby and her tarot an income tax store. So, which is why I had to pick her. So Pee-wee stumbles across a fortune teller, psychic, and goes in, but her window, her claim to fame is she's a psychic and can read your tarot cards and crystal balls and income tax.
Yeah.
So
you gotta predict what you're gonna get from your income tax.
So I'm going with her as my winner because she's clearly making some business, and by telling people what they want to hear. But she seemed like she was on to something because she really picked up on his mood on being upset about his bike, but then she failed by guessing where the bike was, which sent Pee-wee on this big adventure, and eventually things come to a happy ending for Pee-wee and this bike anyway.
You got to think that, kind of she was the catalyst to get him on the road.
It's true.
It's a very important part of the story because he needed to get going on the road for things to get crazy. So
Yes.
we are indebted to Madame Ruby for that.
Yes. Thank you, Madame Ruby.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, my winner is the snakes. So, of course, after the whole debacle at the Warner Brothers studios where he was stealing his bike back and being chased by everybody and going past Twisted Sister and this, that, and the other, he escapes by Geronimoing over the wall or whatnot. Ends up at a pet store that's just burning. And there's no one there. Somehow the thing's burning. And he runs in to save all the pets. But you can tell he wants nothing to do with snakes. Does not like snakes. And he's saving the rats. He's saving the chimp. He's saving the dogs and all that. Then finally he breaks down and he looks at the snakes. And he comes running out. Ah! He swallowed his fear. Saved the snakes. I think the snakes were almost in danger of not getting saved But
I think so.
Pee-wee found their inner courage,
Yep.
brought him out, and thanks to that, the snakes made it through.
Mhm.
So good on them.
I also wrote the snakes down, so that's very funny.
Oh,
Good.
man, that's good stuff. So that is our movie, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, directed by Tim Burton. One of my all-time favorites.
Absolutely.
I know it's one of Gail's too.
Same. Music composed by Danny Elfman.
Mhm.
This was also co-written by Phil Hartman and Paul Rubens. And Phil Hartman, I'm just giving a shout out to our other channel, Coming Up Millhouse, where we talk about The Simpsons, but we don't talk about the titular character who you
On
can
the
see
shirt.
on George's shirt here. But Phil Hartman is a voice in some of my favorite characters on The Simpsons, especially in the seasons that we're currently discussing.
Troy McClure, Lionel Hutz,
Mhm.
just classic stuff. So a little bit of a connecting thread there
Yeah,
for sure. So check out our channel, Coming Up Millhouse. I will have a link in the notes below. Go over there. We got some fun videos. We talk about the same format with that show, and we have a lot of fun. Go check that out. All right, thanks a lot for stopping by on this video. We really appreciate it. We had a great time, and I'll see you again soon. And until the next time,
Have a good one.
have a good one.